I think I didn't do anything wrong, just chose happiness when my husband couldn't give it to me anymore. But the way he looked at me holding that envelope, like I was the villain, still makes me wonder if everyone else sees it that way. I never expected the police to show up right after my lover told him to leave. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The silence in our townhouse living room felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Nate sat hunched over his laptop at the dining table, his shoulders tense as he typed away at some IT project that would probably keep him busy until midnight. Again. 7-year-old Lila was upstairs, hopefully asleep, but I knew she'd been picking up on the tension between us. Kids always do. You know, a normal husband would actually talk to his wife instead of hiding behind work all the time, I said, folding laundry with more force than necessary. The towels snapped as I shook them out. Nate's fingers paused on the keyboard. I'm not hiding, Zuleika. I'm working. Some of us have deadlines that actually matter. Right, because managing 3 apartment complexes doesn't matter at all. I threw a towel into the basket. God forbid you spend 5 minutes asking how my day went. He closed the laptop and turned to face me, his brown eyes tired. How was your day, Zuleika? Don't patronize me, Nathaniel. I hated when he used that calm, reasonable tone. It made me feel like I was being irrational, even though I wasn't. You know what I mean. When's the last time we actually talked? When's the last time you made me feel like I mattered? You matter. You and Lila are everything to me. Then act like it. I grabbed another towel, snapping it so hard it echoed through the room. I'm 33 years old, Nate. I'm not going to waste away in this house while you live for spreadsheets and server maintenance. Upstairs, a door creaked. We both froze, listening for Lila's footsteps, but the house went quiet again. Can we please not do this tonight? Nate rubbed his temples. I've got 3 clients breathing down my neck, and there's always something, isn't there? Always an excuse. I set down the laundry basket and crossed my arms. Your mother called today, by the way. Asked if we were coming to Sunday dinner. What did you tell her? That I'd check with you, since apparently I can't make decisions for this family anymore. Nate sighed. You can make decisions. You've been different lately. Distant. I thought maybe you needed space. Different. Distant. If only he knew how different things were about to become. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text message. I moved to grab it, but Nate was closer. I'll get it, he said, reaching for the phone. Don't touch my phone. The words came out sharper than I intended. Nate's hand froze halfway to the device. It's just sitting right here, Zuleika. I was being helpful. I snatched the phone and glanced at the screen. Julian's name lit up the display. Thinking about you. Can't wait for tomorrow night. My heart hammered as I quickly turned the phone face down. It's just work stuff. At 10:30 at night. Property management doesn't stop at 5, Nate. You of all people should understand working late. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the questions forming in his eyes. Good. Maybe if he started paying attention, started fighting for what we had, things could be different. But deep down, I knew it was too late for that. Mummy? Lila's small voice drifted down from the top of the stairs. Daddy, why are you talking so loud? Nate immediately softened, the fight draining out of his posture. We're just discussing grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Go back to bed. Is Daddy going away? The question hit like a physical blow. I looked at Nate, saw the pain flash across his face, and felt something twist in my chest. But then my phone buzzed again, and I remembered what I deserved, what I could have. No, baby, Nate called up. Daddy's not going anywhere. But as I watched him climb the stairs to tuck our daughter back into bed, I couldn't help thinking that maybe he should be. The next morning, I called my mother while getting ready for work. Carmen Stein had always been my biggest supporter, the one person who truly understood what it meant to be a woman with needs and dreams. He sounds emotionally unavailable, honey, she said, after I filled her in on the previous night's argument. You can't fix a man who won't even acknowledge there's a problem. I just feel so alone, Mom, like I'm roommates with a stranger who happens to share my last name. You're 33 years old, Zuleika. This is supposed to be the prime of your life. You shouldn't have to beg for attention from your own husband. I applied mascara in the bathroom mirror, watching my reflection nod in agreement. Julian says the same thing. This bartender friend of yours sounds like he has more emotional intelligence than Nate ever will. Friend, if only it were that simple. I'm thinking about having some of the girls over this weekend. Maybe we could all go out, have some fun for once. Good for you. You deserve to have a social life, even if your husband wants to live like a hermit. After hanging up, I found Nate in the kitchen making Lila's lunch. He'd already prepared coffee for me. Black, no sugar, exactly how I liked it. The gesture should have felt sweet, but instead it annoyed me. Too little, too late. I'm going out with Sarah and the girls on Saturday, I announced, grabbing the coffee mug. Sounds good. I can stay home with Leela. He didn't even look up from spreading peanut butter on bread. Maybe we could all do something Sunday afternoon. Go to the park or... I might be tired on Sunday, we'll see. Now he looked up, confusion creasing his forehead. Zuleika, is everything okay? I've been what? I don't know. Different. Like you're angry all the time, but I can't figure out what I did wrong. The frustrating thing was, he genuinely seemed confused, like he couldn't see how we'd drifted apart, how he'd stopped making me feel desired, appreciated, alive. Like he thought going through the motions of marriage was enough. Maybe that's the problem, Nate. Maybe you should figure it out. I left him standing in the kitchen, still holding that stupid peanut butter knife, and headed to work with Julian's text message, warming my phone like a secret. Julian's apartment was everything our townhouse wasn't. Small, cluttered, and electric with possibility. The bartender lifestyle suited him. There were bottles of expensive whiskey on the counter, concert posters on the walls, and a general sense that anything could happen here. You're tense, he said, running his hands along my shoulders as I stood by his window, looking down at the street below. Nate starting to ask questions. Let him ask. Julian's voice was casual, unconcerned. At 29, he had the luxury of not caring about mortgages and custody arrangements and family Sunday dinners. What's the worst that happens? You finally get out of a marriage that's making you miserable. I turned to face him. Julian was attractive in a way that Nate had never been. Confident, spontaneous, present. When he looked at me, I felt like the most fascinating woman in the world, instead of just another obligation on a to-do list. It's not that simple. There's Lila to think about. Kids are resilient, she'll be fine. The dismissive way he said it should have bothered me, but I was too caught up in the way his fingers traced patterns on my skin. This was what I'd been missing. This feeling of being wanted, of being someone's priority. I told him I was working late again tonight, I said. Good, that gives us plenty of time. Later, driving home at nearly midnight, I practiced my story. The Riverside complex had a plumbing emergency. I had to coordinate with emergency contractors. My phone died, which was why I couldn't call. But when I walked into the house, Nate was waiting in the living room, still dressed, still awake. How was the emergency? He asked quietly. Exhausting. 3 units flooded, and the contractor didn't show up until 10. The lies came easily now. I'm beat, going to bed. Zuleika, wait. He stood up, and I noticed he had papers in his hand. I was looking at our phone bill online. There are a lot of calls to a number I don't recognize. My stomach clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. Which number? He read off Julian's digits. It shows up almost every day for the past month, sometimes multiple times a day. Oh, that's Julian Hayes. He's a contractor I've been working with on the Riverside property, the one with all the problems. A contractor who calls you at 11 at night. Emergency contact. You know how these old buildings are. Something's always breaking. I moved toward the stairs, hoping to end the conversation. I really need to get some sleep. Zuleika. His voice stopped me on the third step. Are we okay? I turned back to look at him, this man I'd promised to love and honor, and felt nothing but irritation at his worried expression. We're fine, Nate. You're being paranoid. But the next morning, I was more careful. I deleted Julian's texts as soon as I read them and made sure to call him only from my office landline. Still, Nate's sister Sasha seemed to be watching me with new intensity when she picked up Layla for their weekly aunt-niece date. You look different, Sasha said, studying my face in the doorway. Glowing. New skincare routine. Just trying to take better care of myself. Good for you. Nate mentioned you've been working a lot of late nights. There was something in her tone that made me defensive. Someone has to pay attention to the properties. They don't manage themselves. Of course, it's just... Well, Nate seems worried. He thinks maybe you're stressed about something. Nate worries too much. Sasha nodded slowly, but her eyes never left my face. He loves you, you know. He'd do anything for you and Lila. I know that. Do you? The question hung in the air between us until Lila came running downstairs with her backpack, breaking the tension. At work, my assistant Jenny noticed the flowers immediately. Someone's got a secret admirer, she teased, reading the card that came with the dozen red roses. To the most beautiful property manager in the city. Thanks for last night. Jay. My face burned as I snatched the card away. They're from a grateful tenant. Must be some grateful tenant. These are expensive. I carried the flowers into my office and closed the door, my hands shaking as I called Julian. Are you insane? I hissed into the phone. You can't send flowers to my workplace. Relax, it's romantic. It's stupid. People are going to talk. So, you're gorgeous, successful, and you deserve flowers. What's the problem? The problem was that I could already see Jenny whispering to the receptionist, could imagine the gossip spreading through the building. But Julian's casual confidence was intoxicating, and part of me thrilled at the idea of being seen as desirable, as someone worth pursuing. Just be more careful next time. There's going to be a next time. Despite everything, I smiled. We'll see. That evening, Nate was quiet during dinner. Too quiet. He helped Lila with her homework while I cleaned the kitchen, and I could feel him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. Daddy, why don't you and Mommy talk anymore? Lila asked as he was reading her bedtime story. I paused in the hallway listening. What do you mean, sweetheart? You used to laugh together. Now you just look sad all the time. There was a long pause before Nate answered. Sometimes grown-ups go through difficult times, but Mommy and I both love you very much. Are you going to get divorced like Emma's parents? Another pause. Longer this time. I hope not, baby. I really hope not. Standing in the dark hallway, I felt a flicker of something that might have been guilt. But then my phone buzzed with another message from Julian, and the feeling faded. I deserved to be happy. I deserved to feel alive. Even if it meant breaking a few hearts along the way. The cafe buzzed with the usual Saturday afternoon energy. Families with strollers, college students with laptops, couples sharing desserts. I'd chosen this spot specifically because it was public, neutral territory where I could control the narrative. Sarah, Michelle, and Rebecca sat around our usual corner table, leaning in as I regaled them with carefully edited stories about my awakening. I'm just saying, there's a whole world out there beyond soccer practice and grocery shopping, I said, stirring my latte. I'm 33, not dead. Good for you, Sarah nodded enthusiastically. Brad and I went through the same thing last year. Sometimes you need to shake things up to remember who you are. Exactly. And honestly, if Nate can't handle me having a social life, that's his problem. Michelle giggled. Speaking of social lives, who's this mysterious contractor you've been spending so much time with? Jenny from your office says he sent you flowers. My cheeks warmed, but I kept my voice casual. Julian's just different. He actually listens when I talk. He makes me feel interesting again. Uh-oh, Rebecca grinned. Sounds like someone's got a crush. It's not a crush. It's just nice to have a friend who appreciates me for who I am. Friend, Sarah made air quotes. Right. We were all laughing when I spotted Nate walking through the cafe entrance. My stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to be here. Saturday afternoons were my time, my space. Oh, shit, I muttered. What? Michelle turned to follow my gaze. Oh, hey, Nate. She waved him over before I could stop her. Nate approached our table slowly, his expression unreadable. He looked tired, I noticed. Older somehow. Ladies? He nodded politely. Mind if I join you for a minute? Of course. Sarah scooted her chair over to make room. We were just hearing about Zuleika's exciting new social life. Nate's eyes found mine across the table. Were you? I was telling them about the work functions I've been attending, I said carefully. Networking events and such. Ah, yes, the networking. With Julian, right? The way he said the name made my blood freeze. Around the table, my friends exchanged glances. Julian's a contractor, I said. It's all very professional. Professional? Nate nodded slowly. That's one way to put it. An uncomfortable silence settled over the group. Michelle cleared her throat. So, Nate, how's work going? Still doing the computer stuff? IT consulting, yes, it's going well. Keeps me busy. He paused, his gaze still locked on mine. Though apparently not busy enough to notice what's happening in my own home. Nate, I said quietly, maybe we should discuss this later. When? You're never home anymore. And when you are, you're on your phone with your contractor. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should give you two some privacy. No, stay, Nate said. I'm curious to hear more about Zuleika's networking. Tell me, does Julian specialize in late-night emergencies? Because he seems to call an awful lot after business hours. My face burned with embarrassment and anger. You're being paranoid and embarrassing yourself. Am I? Because I found it interesting that Julian Hayes isn't listed in any contractor databases. In fact, according to his social media, he's a bartender at Murphy's Pub. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel my friends staring at me, could see the pieces clicking together in their minds. You investigated him? I tried to sound outraged rather than panicked. I got curious about the man my wife spends so much time talking to. Nate's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. Imagine my surprise. Rebecca set down her coffee cup with a clink. Zuleika, it's not what you think, I said quickly. Julian does contracting work on the side. Nate's just being... I'm being what, exactly? Nate interrupted. Concerned? Suspicious? Hurt? The last word hit like a slap. Around us, other cafe patrons were starting to notice the tension at our table. Look, maybe Julian and I are friends, I said, lifting my chin defiantly. Maybe I enjoy having someone in my life who actually wants to spend time with me. Is that such a crime? Friends, Nate repeated, like the kind of friends who send expensive flowers with romantic notes. My mouth went dry. How did you... Jenny's married to one of my clients. Small world. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own co-workers were gossiping about me, reporting back to my husband like I was some kind of criminal. This is ridiculous. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. I'm not going to sit here and be interrogated like a teenager. Zuleika, wait. Michelle reached for my arm, but I pulled away. No, I'm done. I'm done apologizing for having a life, for having friends, for being something more than just a wife and mother. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, but Nate's voice followed me. Is that what you think this is about? You having friends? I turned back, and the look in his eyes almost stopped me cold. Pain, confusion, and something else. Something that looked like resignation. I think this is about you not being able to handle the fact that I'm not going to sit home waiting for you to remember I exist. Zuleika. But I was already walking away, my heels clicking against the cafe floor as conversation stopped and heads turned to watch the drama unfold. Outside in the parking lot, my hand shook as I fumbled with my car keys. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from my mother. "Sarah just called. She's worried about you. Want to talk?" Then another message, this one from Julian. "Free tonight. Could use some cheering up after the day I've had." I stared at both messages, my heart pounding. Behind me, through the cafe window, I could see Nate still sitting with my friends, his head in his hands. I deleted my mother's message and replied to Julian, "Yes, I'll be there in an hour." As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Nate in my rearview mirror. He was standing outside the cafe now, watching my car disappear down the street. For a moment, I almost turned around. Almost. By the time I got home that evening, I'd made my decision. The humiliation at the cafe had crystallized something inside me. I was tired of sneaking around, tired of making excuses, tired of living a half life. Nate was in the living room when I walked in, sitting in his usual chair with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up as I entered, and I could see he'd been thinking too. "Where's Lila?" I asked. "At my mother's. I thought we should talk without her hearing." "Smart." I set my purse down and faced him, crossing my arms. "Fine, let's talk." "Are you having an affair?" The question hung in the air between us. No more dancing around it, no more careful words, just the truth, stark and unavoidable. "Yes." Nate's face didn't change, but I saw his grip tighten on the glass. "How long?" 2 months. "Do you love him?" The question caught me off guard. Did I love Julian, or did I love the way he made me feel, desired, exciting, alive? I don't know. Maybe. What I do know is that I'm happy for the first time in years. Nate set down his whiskey and stood up slowly. "Happy. That's what this is about. You're happy." "Don't say it like it's a dirty word, Nate. Yes, I'm happy. Julian makes me feel like a woman instead of just a roommate who happens to share your bed. So this is my fault." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." He walked to the window, looking out at our quiet street. "I've been trying to figure out where I went wrong. Working too much, not talking enough, not being romantic enough. Nate, but the truth is, there's nothing I could have done differently, is there? You wanted something I couldn't give you, so you went and found it somewhere else." The calm way he said it unnerved me. I'd expected anger, shouting, maybe even tears. This quiet resignation was somehow worse. "We grew apart," I said. "It happens." "We grew apart because you stopped trying, because you decided it was easier to find excitement with someone new than to work on what we had." "What we had was boring, Nate. We were like brother and sister, not husband and wife." He turned back to face me. "And now I want a divorce." The words surprised even me. I hadn't planned to say them, but once they were out, I realized they were true. There was no going back from this, no way to rebuild what I'd already burned down. Nate nodded slowly. "I see. I'm not trying to hurt you. I want to be happy. I want to be with someone who actually wants me. And you think Julian wants you? Really wants you?" Something in his tone made me defensive. "Yes, I do." "For how long, Zuleika?" "Until the next interesting woman walks into his bar. Until the novelty wears off and you're not exciting anymore." "You don't know him." "I know his type. I was 29 once too." The front door opened, and I turned in surprise. Julian walked in like he owned the place, his confidence filling the room. "Hey, babe," he said, kissing my cheek possessively. "Thought you might need some moral support." I'd given him a key the week before, but seeing him use it now in front of Nate felt surreal. "Julian, maybe you should—" "No, it's fine," Nate said quietly. "Actually, it's perfect. Now we can all be honest." Julian looked between us, sizing up the situation. "Honest about what?" "About the fact that you're sleeping with my wife. Ex-wife, from what I hear." Julian's smile was sharp, confident. Zuleika's moving on, man. Maybe you should too. Is that right? Nate's voice remained calm, but something had changed in his posture. And you're here to help her move on? I'm here to support her, something you apparently never figured out how to do. I should have stopped it there. Should have seen the danger in Julian's casual cruelty, in the way he was treating my husband, the father of my child, like an inconvenience to be dismissed. Julian, I said quietly, but he was already talking. Look, no hard feelings, but Zuleika deserves better than a guy who ignores her for his computer all day. She's an amazing woman, and she needs someone who appreciates that. Someone like you. Someone like me. Nate nodded thoughtfully. And what exactly do you appreciate about her, Julian? Besides the obvious. She's smart, funny, beautiful. She's also married, with a 7-year-old daughter. Did you appreciate that part? Julian shrugged. Kids adapt, and marriages end all the time. So they do. Nate picked up his whiskey glass and finished the contents in one swallow. Well, I can see I'm not needed here anymore. He walked toward the stairs, and for a moment I thought that was it. The end of my marriage, handled with typical Nate-like quiet dignity. But halfway up, he stopped and turned back. By the way, Julian, you might want to be more careful about where you park. Mrs. Henderson next door has been taking pictures of your car in our driveway. She's very concerned about property values. Julian's confidence faltered slightly. So? So nothing. Just thought you should know. Nate continued up the stairs. I'll be out of your way in the morning. I watched him go, feeling a strange mixture of relief and something that might have been regret. Julian put his arm around my waist, pulling me close. See, that wasn't so bad. He's taking it pretty well. Yeah, I said, but something felt wrong. Nate had given up too easily, been too calm, too accepting. So this is your place now, Julian said, looking around the living room. Nice. Much better than my apartment. Our place, I corrected automatically. Right, our place. But the way he said it made me wonder if he was thinking about the house or about me. 20 minutes later, we heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw a police cruiser parking at the curb. What the hell? Julian muttered. 2 officers got out and walked up to our front door. The doorbell rang, and I looked at Julian in confusion. Mrs. Farrow, the older officer said when I opened the door, we need you to come with us. What? Why? You're being served with legal documents, restraining order, temporary custody arrangement, and financial injunction. You need to come to the station to receive them officially. My mouth fell open. Restraining order? From who? Your husband, ma'am, Mr. Nathaniel Farrow. I turned to look at Julian, but his face had gone pale. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I don't understand, I said. He just left. He was fine with everything. Ma'am, we need you to come with us now. As they led me toward the patrol car, I caught a glimpse of Nate's silhouette in an upstairs window. He was watching, but his expression was hidden in shadow. The quiet, passive husband I thought I knew had just made his first move. And I was beginning to realize I'd never really known him at all. The police station smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. I sat in a plastic chair in a sterile waiting room, still in shock from the evening's events. Julian had followed the patrol car in his own vehicle, but they wouldn't let him come inside with me. Mrs. Farrow? A uniformed officer approached with a manila envelope. These are the documents your husband filed today. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The legal language was dense, but the meaning was clear enough. Restraining order for harassment and emotional distress, temporary custody of Lila, and an injunction freezing our joint accounts. I don't understand, I said to the officer. Harassment? I never harassed anyone. According to the filing, there's evidence of adultery, emotional abuse, and behavior detrimental to the minor child's well-being. Evidence? My voice cracked. What evidence? The officer handed me another set of papers. phone records showing dozens of calls and texts to Julian's number, credit card statements showing charges at hotels and restaurants I'd claimed were work expenses, witness statements from neighbors about Julian's car being at the house overnight, and photographs. Mrs. Henderson had indeed been busy with her camera. I stared at the papers, my mind reeling. He planned this. He knew everything and just let me think I was getting away with it. Ma'am, you have the right to contest these orders, but they're effective immediately. You cannot contact your husband or daughter directly, and you cannot access your joint financial accounts without court approval. Where am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to pay for anything? That's something you'll need to work out with your attorney. Attorney. I didn't have an attorney. I didn't have anything except Julian waiting outside in his beat-up Honda. Can I make a phone call? They led me to a payphone in the hallway. I called my mother first. Zuleika, honey, what's wrong? You sound terrible. Mom, I'm at the police station. Nate had me served with legal papers, a restraining order. Silence on the other end. Then, a restraining order? For what? He says I harassed him, that I'm unfit to be around Lila. That's ridiculous. He's just being vindictive because you're finally standing up for yourself. He froze our bank accounts, Mom. I can't even get into the house. Come stay with me. We'll figure this out. Nate can't just steal your daughter and kick you out of your own home. But even as she said it, I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. The papers in my hand suggested that maybe he could do exactly that. When I finally emerged from the station an hour later, Julian was leaning against his car, smoking a cigarette. Jesus, Zuleika, what the hell happened in there? I handed him the papers wordlessly. He scanned them quickly, his face growing paler with each page. Restraining order? He can do that? Apparently. I felt numb, disconnected from my own life. I can't go home, can't see Lila, can't access my own money. This is crazy. He seems so calm about everything. That's what I thought too. Julian finished reading and handed the papers back to me. So what now? I don't know. My mom said I can stay with her while I figure out how to fight this. Good, that's good. But he was looking at the papers again, specifically at the part about financial assets. How much money are we talking about? In the accounts he froze? The question hit me like a slap. We? I mean, how much do you have access to for lawyers and stuff? I don't have access to anything, Julian. That's the point. He nodded, but I could see him thinking, calculating. The confident man who'd walked into my house an hour ago was gone, replaced by someone who suddenly looked very young and very worried. Maybe I should take you to your mum's place, he said finally. Maybe you should. The drive to my mother's house was quiet. Julian kept the radio on, filling the silence with classic rock, but I could feel the distance growing between us with every mile. When we pulled into my mother's driveway, he didn't turn off the engine. You're not coming in? I should probably get home. Early shift tomorrow. I stared at him, this man I'd blown up my life for, and saw him clearly for the first time. The excitement, the passion, the validation I'd craved. It had all been real, but it had also been fragile. Built on stolen moments and the thrill of the forbidden. Now, faced with the messy reality of divorce proceedings and custody battles and frozen bank accounts, Julian was already backing away. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. Will you? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. Zuleika, this is just... It's a lot. I didn't expect it to get so complicated. What did you expect? I don't know, I just thought... Your husband seemed like the type to just roll over and take it. So did I. I got out of the car and walked to my mother's front door without looking back. I heard Julian's engine rev as he pulled away, and somehow I knew I wouldn't be hearing from him again. Inside, my mother wrapped me in a hug that smelled like her familiar perfume and made me feel like a child again. Oh, honey, what has that man done to you? He outsmarted me, Mom. I thought I was so clever, so careful, but he knew everything. He was just waiting for the right moment to use it against me. We'll get you a lawyer. A good one. He can't just take Lila away from you. But as I sat in my childhood bedroom that night, surrounded by faded posters and high school trophies, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe he could. Maybe he already had. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, my heart jumped, thinking it might be Julian. Instead, it was from Sasha. Lila's asking for you. This is breaking her heart. I typed back, tell her I love her. Tell her I'm trying to come home. The response came immediately. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you chose someone else over your family. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, then pulled the covers over my head and cried until I had no tears left. Outside, my mother's neighborhood was quiet and peaceful. Somewhere across town, my daughter was probably lying in her own bed, wondering why Mommy wasn't there to kiss her goodnight. And somewhere else, my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, was probably planning his next move in a game. I was only now realizing I'd never had a chance of winning. 3 weeks later, I sat across from Nate in his lawyer's conference room, feeling like a stranger in my own life. The mahogany table between us might as well have been an ocean. My court-appointed attorney, the only one I could afford, shuffled through papers with the enthusiasm of someone billing minimum wage. Nate's lawyer, by contrast, was sharp, expensive, and thoroughly prepared. She laid out the custody agreement with clinical precision. Mrs. Farrow will have supervised visitation rights every other weekend, pending completion of a psychological evaluation and parenting classes. Supervised? I looked at my own lawyer. I'm not a danger to my daughter. The court disagrees, Nate's lawyer continued smoothly. Given the evidence of adultery, emotional instability, and poor judgment, supervised visits are deemed in the child's best interest. I wanted to argue, to fight, but the evidence was overwhelming. They had everything: the phone records, the hotel receipts, the photographs, even testimony from Julian's co-workers about our relationship. Nate had been building his case for weeks while I'd been living in a fantasy. The property settlement is straightforward, the lawyer continued. Mr. Farrow will retain the family home, given that he has primary custody. Mrs. Farrow will receive her portion of the equity, minus legal fees and costs associated with the adultery proceedings. After lawyer fees and penalties, my portion would barely cover a security deposit on an apartment. What about spousal support? My attorney asked weakly. Given Mrs. Farrow's employment and the circumstances of the marriage dissolution, Mr. Farrow is under no obligation to provide ongoing support. I looked across the table at Nate. He sat quietly, his hands folded, his expression neutral. This was the man I'd dismissed as passive, boring, predictable. The man I'd thought would simply accept whatever I chose to do. Nate, I said quietly, can we talk? Privately? His lawyer started to object, but Nate held up a hand. 5 minutes. The lawyers left us alone in the conference room. The silence stretched between us until I couldn't stand it anymore. I know you hate me. I don't hate you, Zuleika. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt, but I don't hate you. Then why are you doing this? Why are you taking Lila away from me? I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her. From what? I'm her mother. You're a woman who chose to have an affair and then flaunted it in public. You brought your lover into our home, into our daughter's space. You put your own desires ahead of your family's well-being. Each word hit like a physical blow because they were true. I made mistakes, but I love Lila. I would never hurt her. You already did hurt her. She's been having nightmares since you left. She keeps asking when you're coming home, and I have to explain that Mommy chose to live somewhere else. Tears burned my eyes. I didn't choose to leave her. You kicked me out. I gave you consequences for your choices. There's a difference. What about Julian? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Nate's expression didn't change. What about him? Did you do something to make him leave? I didn't have to do anything, Zuleika. Julian left because this got real, because supporting a girlfriend is different from supporting a divorced mother with legal problems and no money. The casual way he said it made it worse somehow, like Julian's abandonment had been so predictable that Nate hadn't even worried about it. "I lost everything," I whispered. "You threw everything away," he corrected. "There's a difference." The lawyers returned, and we signed the papers in silence. As we prepared to leave, Nate's attorney handed me one final document. "This is a communication protocol for visitation arrangements. All contact regarding your daughter must go through the court-appointed mediator." "I can't even call my own child?" "Not directly, no." Outside the law office, I watched Nate walk to his car, our old car, which he now owned outright. He moved with a confidence I'd never noticed before, a sense of purpose that made him seem like a different person. "Nate," I called out. He turned back, waiting. "Do you think, someday, could we maybe try again? For Lila's sake?" The look he gave me was almost pitying. "Zuleika, you didn't just cheat on me. You humiliated me in front of our friends. You brought another man into our home. And you made our daughter question whether her family was going to survive. Even if I could forgive that, I could never trust you again. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice, a series of choices, made over months, with full knowledge of what you were risking." He got into his car and drove away, leaving me standing alone on the sidewalk. 6 months later, I watched from my studio apartment window as Nate picked up Lila after one of our supervised visits. She ran to him with the enthusiasm she used to show me, and he swept her up in a hug that made my chest ache. My mother still insisted that Nate was being vindictive, that I deserved better, that I'd been right to seek happiness. But her words felt hollow now. My friends had slowly distanced themselves after the cafe incident, and my co-workers treated me with polite professionalism that barely masked their judgment. Julian had disappeared completely after that night at the police station. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that he was dating someone new, a college student with no complications, no baggage, no consequences. The woman in the mirror looked older now, worn down by legal battles and supervised visits and the constant weight of being known as the woman who'd destroyed her own family. I'd gotten what I thought I wanted: freedom from a boring marriage, escape from domestic routine, the right to pursue my own happiness. Instead, I'd learned that happiness built on someone else's pain doesn't last. That excitement fades, but trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. That the man I'd dismissed as predictable had been quietly, methodically, and completely devoted to protecting what mattered most. My phone buzzed with a text from the court mediator. "Next supervised visit scheduled for Saturday, 2 p.m. Please confirm." I typed back my confirmation and looked out the window again. Nate's car was gone, taking my daughter back to the home I'd lost, the life I'd thrown away. In the end, I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for: a life without Nate, without the responsibilities and compromises of marriage, without the boring routine of family dinners and bedtime stories. I just hadn't realized how empty that life would feel, or how much I'd miss the quiet, steady love of a man who'd deserved so much better than what I'd given him. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to escape what I saw as a prison, I'd built a real one, and unlike Nate, I had no one to blame but myself. As I closed the blinds and turned away from the window, I caught my reflection one more time. The woman looking back at me was free, independent, and utterly alone, just like I'd wanted.